It's about Hong Kong netizens. So a few days ago, this thing came out online. And some people said, wow, big news, big news. Actually, when I look at what they're saying, it's not enough to deliver a fatal blow. In the end, I'll explain it to everyone. And also, I'll talk about it again. This issue of corruption in mainland China, where is the root of this problem? So, on March 20th, the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a report on the wealth and corrupt activities of the Chinese leadership, stating that Xi Jinping's family holds enormous wealth. This report is based on the 2323 National Defense Authorization Act. It was done under a clause within the National Defense Authorization Act. Section 6501 requires submission. It was completed by the National Intelligence Council and Chinese national intelligence officials. This report was originally submitted to Congress in December 2023, but it was delayed by intelligence agencies until March this year. It's very likely that the Biden administration didn't want to provoke Xi Jinping. They felt it was meaningless, that saying it out loud would just tear Xi Jinping's face, so to speak. At that time, it was intended to communicate between China and the US, but it wasn't beneficial. That's why the Biden administration held on to it. Let me remind everyone about this report. Who was involved in making this request? Rubio himself was involved. The report cites news from 2012, stating that Xi Jinping's siblings, nephews, and nieces possess assets worth $1 billion USD. Now, let me tell you, according to rumors, after Xi Jinping became the head of the military in 2007, he called his mother, Qi Xin, to gather all his siblings back. He told them, "You should stop doing business. Stop doing business." This was reiterated in 2012, saying, "If you continue doing business, I won't take care of you. I won't take care of you. You'd better sell everything and leave." This is the insider information that has been circulated. However, according to the evidence provided by industry research, those few in 2024 are still very wealthy. There's no way to directly link these investments to Xi Jinping using data, but it also cannot be ruled out that these assets might represent the possibility of being indirectly managed by Xi Jinping. That is to say, it is estimated to be around $700 to $800 million, while what they found is $70 billion. But these funds are under other people's names, so you can't prove that they belong to Xi Jinping. However, Xi Jinping might be controlling them remotely. As for Wen Jiabao, there's no need to mention him. Wen Jiabao was dragged down by his wife. His wife and family controlled at least $2.7 billion in assets, and his wife was in the jewelry business. He said it's because there's a lack of transparency in the country. The government's censorship system is omnipresent. The government wants to review everything. They have a lot of power. And with such power, they have the authority to obstruct or assist you, which then turns into rent-seeking activities. And there's no financial disclosure for the leaders. This was already proposed during Zhao Ziyang's time, that those officials should disclose their assets publicly. But what was the result? Later, after much discussion, it was said to be passed. But in the end, it wasn't passed. Eventually, the case was dropped. When it came to Xi Jinping, those who demanded the disclosure of officials' assets were arrested and imprisoned. Therefore, it's very difficult to monitor their wealth. For example, if someone next to me has a house, it's easy for that information to spread. If there's no declaration, this is the issue. In Taiwan, there is a declaration, but I feel the declaration is neither pure nor true. In Taiwan, there must be extensive use of this income. It is disproportionate to the property, that's it. That is, according to the Hong Kong ICAC's regulations, Chinese media, after reporting on the wealth accumulation of high-level families, have strengthened information control and restricted foreign news agencies from entering. Well, this is talking about since 2010, reporting on who is wealthy and who is wealthy like that. So then they have tightened up this kind of information very strictly, not allowing foreign media to conduct these investigations in China, saying that you have committed espionage. So, if you want to research issues of high-level corruption or personal wealth, it becomes even more difficult, according to research statements. High-level leaders have privileged access to information channels. And there are two things about this. First, once you have the information is money, not to mention using it to trade stocks or knowing where there are bids happening. Where there are things being sold cheaply, you will know in advance. Secondly, there is the advantage of private and various opportunity actions because of their connections with political power, which benefits the family. Historically, let me explain to everyone that there are two types. Some are directly beneficial to you, for example, when you are bidding for government contracts. I've seen it before. When the China Merchants Group was tendering, it was an open daily tender, but there was definitely cheating involved. Why? If you are not one of their people bidding, they scrutinize every detail so strictly that it feels like an autopsy, making it unbearable for you to continue. If you are one of their own, they turn a blind eye. So, in reality, they monopolize the tendering process to make big money. Government spending can also be a source of huge profits. Additionally, in mainland China, getting approval or certain licenses can be extremely valuable. For example, insurance licenses and securities licenses are all valuable because the regulation is strict. Getting a license means you have to pay a lot of money, and that's quite intimidating. Moreover, there's the power to make things difficult for you. If you want to buy someone off, they won't make things difficult for you. Take, for instance, the fire department. The fire department recommends that you need to make some adjustments here. How about the fire department? Mr. Leader. Sai, don't you find someone yourself? Don't you introduce someone to me? I meant to say, that company is quite reliable in their work. You should contact them yourself. It's not my responsibility. In Taiwan, parents are the ones who collect the money. It's all like this, I'm telling you. These bad habits really need to be stopped, because if you don't let the reliable company handle it, next time they come, it'll be like an autopsy inspection. U.S. Congressional Research Service, June 2024. In June 2024, it is estimated that the wealth of Xi Jinping's family, amounting to 1.7 billion USD, far exceeds what can be explained by legitimate income. If Xi Jinping's family borrowed 700 million USD, I must say that he is not a clean official, because even village officials in China are said to have tens of billions. In comparison, corrupt officials in the US are quite embarrassing. This is what the US said about Clinton. How much money do the Clintons have? I think the Clintons might have a few hundred million USD now, which is just a few hundred million. Moreover, that money was earned after leaving the presidency. So it's hard to say it's corruption. It's mostly from writing books and giving speeches, similar to Obama. You could say there are some deferred benefits, but during their time in office, I'm telling you, these people absolutely wouldn't engage in corruption. The poorest one is Carter. I'm telling you, he doesn't have any money. The Washington Post quoted a congressional aide saying, "The Chinese embassy urged him to quickly reject the report and not publish it." The report clearly states that corruption is an inherent characteristic of China, and challenging the Chinese in what they are best at is bribery. China has a 2,000-year deeply rooted culture of bribery. The Chinese hold most of the wealth in Southeast Asia because they know how to bribe and take shortcuts. And they know how to bribe, as I said. What are China's 4 great inventions, or the money they earn? None of it compares to one thing, which is called loyalty, a concept the Chinese invented. So, what happens then? The money from corruption is managed by the Chinese because they have loyalty. You understand? So, the Suharto family, with all their corruption money, trusted someone named Lim Siwe Leong the most. Lim Siwe Leong ended up being the richest man in Indonesia, with more money than Suharto himself, because he was loyal. They trusted the Chinese not to betray them. But what does it really mean for Chinese people to be loyal? Let me give an example. Back then, when the police inspectors were around, not a single rent collector would betray the inspector. No matter how you pressured them, they wouldn't betray the inspector. This is what loyalty means. The political system has centralized power in China, with a lack of independent checks and limited transparency. So, what is distinctive about bribery in China? The bribery is done in a way that makes you feel very comfortable and gives you a lot of face. How is the bribery done? Let me give you an example. But during the Qing dynasty, it was often like this. I would take an antique from my home and place it in a pawn shop to sell. If you wanted to bribe a particular official, you would go there and buy that antique. How much is the antique worth? That's a very difficult thing to say. Have you established the connection? Li Lianying would tell you to go to a specific pawn shop and buy something for 50,000 taels of silver. The most famous case was this one. The position of Shanghai Dao, a lucrative post, was priced at 90,000 taels of silver. This was 90,000 taels of silver. The report states that after the anti-corruption campaign was launched in 2012, the Chinese Discipline Inspection Commission arrested 5 million people, with 4.7 million officials found guilty. In China, where tens of thousands are involved each year, 50% of officials are implicated in corruption, especially at the local level. I disagree with this. Corruption in China is at least 99%. Why is that? If you don't engage in corruption, you can't survive because some of it is collective corruption. If you are someone who tries to remain clean, the others feel threatened. If you are the one not taking money, they will immediately assign you to work in a library or do similar tasks because it's too dangerous for them. A well-intentioned person cannot exist. It's like trying to wash clothes in dirty water. No matter how you wash, they remain dirty. The unofficial income that officials gain through bribery and corruption can reach 4 to 6 times their official salary, and this is considered a conservative estimate. According to academic research, the percentage varies from 8 to 65%, depending on the level of the officials. The higher the officials rank, the more income they can obtain through corruption. Let me tell you, a lot of this is converted into gray income, which technically isn't considered corruption. Let me give you an example. In the past, to get published in academic journals, you had to pay a bribe. But now they don't dare to do that anymore. If you want to publish in an academic journal, the journal will charge you a fee, which is officially collected. If you don't pay, you can't get published. The official collects this fee and then distributes it to the editors. So it's just a change in form. Xi Jinping's anti-corruption culture reflects a party-led securitization, targeting political discipline and unclear ideological dispersion, maintaining the legitimacy of domestic control. Actually, he wants to fight corruption because he believes that corruption erodes the party's interests, which are essentially Xi Jinping's interests. Let me give you an example, and you'll understand. The owner of this ranch raises some sheep and hires sheepdogs to herd them. If the sheepdogs secretly eat the sheep, what about the ranch owner, a very strict ranch owner? Cannot tolerate this like Zhu Yuanzhang. However, some ranch owners are not like that. Well, I have to rely on the sheepdogs to look after the sheep. So if they eat one or two, occasionally, it's fine. Just don't eat too many. So as a result, the sheepdogs ended up eating most of the sheep. Do you know, this is like those sheepdogs deceiving the ranch owner. The ranch owner, in this case, is like Xi Jinping, who considers all the sheep as his personal wealth and does not allow corruption. This is because it's like taking his money. Thus, corruption is classified as a political crime because you are not loyal to Xi Jinping, and your ideological stance is not aligned. The corrupt officials who are purged are first accused of seriously violating the party's discipline. In 2021, the Discipline Committee depicted the anti-corruption efforts as a severe political struggle with corruption undermining the party's leadership and unity. If everyone is corrupt, then are you influenced by those who bribed you? No. It's about not obeying the party's orders, right? Aren't you completely eroded and controlled by those businesses? Isn't that a lack of loyalty? In 2024, the anti-corruption campaign led to the downfall of over 50 senior officials. These are referred to as mid-level cadres. Over the years, there have been more and more reports. The National People's Congress is a typical mechanism of corrupt operations. Are the members of the National People's Congress the result of bribery? There was an instance where they tried to pull everyone to elect local People's Congress members, but it wasn't successful. And it also involves deferred interests. Let me tell you, in China, there is nothing that isn't caused by bribery. This includes government officials and the academic community. To be promoted to an academician, you need to spend tens of millions to bribe other academicians to get elected. There are benefits to being a member of the National People's Congress. Some people bribe at high prices to obtain seats in order to collect bribes. This is essentially a business. Once they get up there, they can help others navigate through connections, speak on their behalf, and find officials, which makes it valuable, right? Xi Jinping has used the anti-corruption campaign to target political opponents. In the early stages, it was indeed aimed at eliminating competing power centers by investigating and arresting the confidants of former leaders. I'm telling you, whoever he wanted to target, he would really go after their secretaries and those kinds of people. Does that scare you? For example, Wang Qishan's secretaries and those who followed him in the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, they were all arrested. Everyone lost face, and their subordinates were all arrested. However, after 10 years of anti-corruption efforts, investigations were conducted. No focus was found on officials with specific factional backgrounds, meaning it wasn't concentrated. You might say they only targeted certain factions, but The statistics they found couldn't prove this. High-ranking officials might be at the mid and go to lower levels, and the anti-corruption campaign generally followed the widespread corruption present at all levels of government. It was truly a broad sweep. As long as someone reported it under Xi Jinping, no one could cover it up, whereas before, it could be covered up during Jiang Zemin's era. In Hu Jintao's era, it was also possible to cover things up. However, in Xi Jinping's era, as long as you have solid evidence and present it, no one can cover it up. But if you bring someone down, you might face retaliation. That's all it means. Even having significant political connections with high-ranking officials cannot protect someone from prosecution. Even officials with close personal ties to Xi Jinping are not spared. For example, ordering the arrest of the Rocket Force commander and at least 9 current and former Rocket Force officials, including Defense Minister Li Shangfu. These are his most trusted people in the Rocket Force and in the Military Industry Department. As a result, many people were arrested. Why? If something goes terribly wrong, why would he look at the Rocket Force? You must open these covers to launch the rockets. But he said that when you open the one next to it, you find out the cover can't be opened. It's fake. So originally, there was supposed to be a hole, right? Ha ha ha. If you dig a hole and then have to fill it with cement, isn't that expensive? I mean, those rockets can move around and be launched from different holes. But that one is just a cover. Wow. That time, Xi Jinping was really, angry. So what about the people in the Rocket Force? They were all caught up in it, along with those in the General Armament Department. Really. All right. Then they launched an investigation into Miao Hua, who was a close associate in the political work of the Central Military Commission at the time. 2 people were charged with violating party discipline. So, what about Miao Hua? It is believed that he was also involved in extensive corruption and bribery. As the head of the political work department, he was responsible for checking everyone's ideology. So, if you wanted a promotion, you needed his approval. If he said you had ideological issues, you couldn't get promoted. Just think about how much corruption there was, right? Xi Jinping's concern about corruption in the military. This reflects why the military cannot be so corrupt, especially when preparing to attack Taiwan. If it turns out that the rockets are not there, what can be done, right? There is a concern that corruption will hinder the ability and readiness to achieve his directives by 2027. In 2024, Xi Jinping addressed military commanders stating that the military must always remain loyal and reliable to the party. He emphasized loyalty and, of course, corruption cannot be tolerated. If a military cannot fight, then it should be reformed, right? Well, the report provides a detailed analysis of the characteristics of China's bureaucratic system and how it facilitates corruption, including several instances where party committees lead without external oversight. The methods of investigating corruption are clearly explained, mainly focusing on the fact that the top leader in a region holds significant power without any checks. And it is also prohibited to speak of any unfavorable news about them. When the people report, there is also a layer of protection. If you go to court, it turns out the court is also under the party's control, without external supervision. So who will investigate them? The commissions, of course, but these commissions are also composed of people from within, resulting in them easily colluding with each other, meaning the commissions themselves are also corrupt. China's directive for economic growth targets must reach advanced levels, but with provincial and local governments making decentralized decisions, there is a great deal of flexibility in policy implementation. In order to achieve those economic indicators, by any means necessary, they engage in many violations, effectively encouraging local leaders to take illegal actions for personal and professional gain. For example, in places like Guizhou, it's because many big figures like Hu Jintao Lu Jianshu, Chen Min-er, and Zhao Leji have been there, so they borrowed a lot of money. Of course, borrowing so much money also involves a lot of bribery. The report reveals that the Chinese military buys promotions with money. Even after 10 years of anti-corruption efforts, all the officials are still bought positions. That is, there are a group of people, say 10 of them. Who gets promoted? Well, it depends on who knows how to get along with others. Because if no one stands out, what's the difference? Whoever knows how to get along better is the one who excels. Even if anti-corruption efforts have achieved certain results, corruption at the high levels in China still remains widespread. In criminal investigations related to corruption, 80% of high-ranking officials found guilty are involved in bribery. Essentially, it's 100%. Now let me tell you, if this information is made public, would it cause a significant blow to Xi Jinping's reputation? Limited. Limited. And why is that? Firstly, the mainland filters out all this information. But since it's impossible to completely filter everything, some of this information inevitably makes its way into the mainland. However, these broad accusations in the mainland can, of course, be dismissed as attempts to smear them. And that's the second point. The fact that Xi Jinping's relatives have hundreds of millions of dollars, many people find it quite reasonable, as if everyone has hundreds of millions of dollars, right? This is considered trivial. If you really want to make accusations, then your intelligence organizations should be very capable. Tell them which bank under whose name the account is and how much money is in it. You just need to provide one word. You can uncover astronomical figures as long as you investigate all of this. There are over 200 members of the Central Committee. How many relatives do they have? How many people have accounts overseas, and how much money is stored in them in the entire Chinese political arena? It's an earthquake because there is a group of people who always have strong faith in him, and their beliefs will be completely shaken. However, these broad accusations are actually just theoretical and won't cause a destructive impact.